Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. You may be seated. Good afternoon, rather. Let me say a particularly good afternoon to all the stakeholders, both here and online on our various virtual platforms. We want to welcome you to this media briefing, which is being hosted by the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation, and particularly to discuss matters relating to water supply in Negril. Right? For those who need a little bearing, Negril is on the western side of the island, situated or straddling the parishes of Hanover and Westmoreland, and primarily served by the logwood treatment plant, which currently is being affected by the drought. Now, the pleasure is mine to acknowledge Minister without portfolio in the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation, Senator the Honorable Matthew Samuda, Permanent Secretary Mrs. Arlene Williams, Chief Technical Director Mr. Yannick Watson in the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation, Acting President of the National Water Commission Mr. Kevin Kerr, Principal Director of the Meteorological Service of Jamaica, Mr. Evan Thompson, Managing Director of the Water Resources Authority, Mr. Peter Clark, and Acting Managing Director of the Rural Water Supply, Miss Murray Bennett. Now, it would be remiss of me not to say a big howdy do to the members of the media who continually partner with us to ensure that messages like these are properly publicized to every corner of Jamaica. So thank you, members of the media, for joining us both here and online. Other special guests invited and those who are representing for their various communities, again, good afternoon. Now, as I said earlier, we will be discussing matters relating to the water supply in Negril. We do have several presentations to help you, but before I go into those, I know Senator the Honorable would like to give a few remarks, and so please make him welcome at this time.
Thank you, Delano. I will consider these welcome remarks and not my substantive presentation. The government of Jamaica remains concerned about the impact, significant and extended impact, of the current drought on citizens in Western Jamaica. It is why over the past few weeks we have addressed this issue extensively. But as you will hear today, because the drought has not yet abated, and we are very clear that the impact has not yet been reduced, we're taking a particularly, I think, important approach of communicating with a fair degree of regularity with citizens, specifically in Hanover and Westmoreland, and with a particular focus on the Negril community, which has been disproportionately affected. I think it's important to note, on one hand, that the government has approached this matter with transparency and has made itself available for stakeholders with a fair degree of regularity. We have had both stakeholder meetings with several groups of interest, as well as done community tours and your typical traditional classroom meeting. We have also committed to continuing to go and meet with stakeholders to make sure that we troubleshoot sometimes what is very small problems, but that do have big impact with a level of regularity. We have also outlined previously our significant investment in emergency trucking, which is being done through the National Water Commission, through members of Parliament, and through parish councils, with the councils in the affected areas. We have outlined before that each member of Parliament in Western Jamaica, by way of Hanover and Westmoreland, has $4 million at their disposal to direct trucking. We have also made available to citizens, to the parish councils, $7.5 million to Hanover and $5 million to Westmoreland as well. We would have made some $30 million available to the Water Commission at the end of February to facilitate trucking in Western Jamaica and, of course, the Brownstown area, which was also going through some particular challenges at that space. So the government has invested in easing the pressure on citizens. The government, through the Ministry of Health and NEPA and NWC, continues to monitor water quality standards to ensure that these emergency interventions also do not compromise public health. We are also actively working to get off the ground our broader tank program, which we expect to have a major impact in the household water resilience for citizens. That program is in procurement and we expect to make announcements about it soon. There are major infrastructure works which are required for this area. But I understand when citizens, when business people hear that they want access to water now. And we understand the frustration that that causes. It is why we're doing everything within our power to take several mitigating steps to ensure that we give optimum operational efficiency with the weak systems that we have now, while keeping you up to date with the varying project stages that we are in as it relates to getting to that level of water resilience that Western Jamaica craves and indeed deserves. With that, Delano, I'm going to ask Mr. Thompson, Mr. Evan Thompson from the Met Service, to come and give his update. But I'm going to just share before we get into that how we'll be approaching the discussion. As we would have done at PostCab, I believe, 2 weeks ago, we'll ask Mr. Thompson of the Met Service to join us, then Peter Clark of the WRA, and then, of course, Mr. Kevin Carr of the National Water Commission. I will then give my substantive presentation, and I just want to alert members of the media, though they were acknowledged before, that we will be available for questions after. You have senior members of the National Water Commission here, you have senior members of the Rural Water Limited, and you have the senior team from NEPA here as well. And of course, I'm supported by PS Arlene Williams and CTD Yannick Watson. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister, and good afternoon, everyone. I just wanted to start out by saying that the Meteorological Service is actually a branch of the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation. We're not an agency or a department per se, but we are a branch of the ministry, so we operate as part of the ministry. So what I'm going to be giving you here is just an update on what has been happening. Much of the information you might be familiar with, but I'll still present it just so that you get to see an idea of what is happening with us. So the dry season, as we can see, I'm looking back all the way to October of 2023, where we had amounts of rainfall, just about 80% of normal rainfall. As we went into November and December, we saw some kind of reprieve. October is usually the month where we look for the greatest amount of rainfall because that is our primary rainfall season. But as we went through November and December, we saw that things improved somewhat and things were looking favorable for us going into the dry season that usually starts in December. But then there was a significant drop in January, and there we see where rainfall amounts were just maybe even less than 50% of what is normal for the island. Then going into February, we saw just over 50%, but still below 60% of normal rainfall. And March was seeing something very much close to that. We're still tallying the figures for March, but it's very close to what we experienced in February. Very little rainfall detected across the island. I just wanted to compare it with what we saw the previous year, because you may recall that we spoke a lot about the drought that we experienced during 22 to 23. That's going from October through November, December into the new year of 2023. And we had what was probably the most significant drought in our history that was experienced at that time during the main part of the dry season that went through February and into March. There was a bit of rainfall in March that made things look a little better, but again, there was a dip as we went into April and May. before things really got better going into June. So here we see that at the end of February, all 13 parishes were receiving below normal rainfall. There were a number of parishes were experiencing drought conditions, and dryness and drought are not the same. I think I pointed that out in the recent press conference from after the cabinet meeting last time. But we are measuring based on how the rainfall compares to what is normal over a 2-month period. So that is what we are measuring when we talk about drought conditions. And we're using a particular index that is called the Standardized Precipitation Index. That it doesn't only look at a comparison, but it does some kind of normalization, and it calculates the All right. Yes, this is much better. All right. So we saw sufficiently low figures to say that we have been experiencing drought for a couple of months, and in February we saw that it really dipped. If you just look at the pictures here, you'll see that the December to January 2-month period of 2024. December 2023 to January 2024 showed that image that you're seeing on your left. On the right, you see the marked change where you saw a drop in the rainfall amounts, and so there are a lot more oranges and reds with the weather conditions being more severe and drought getting more entrenched across the island at February. The preliminary data that we've been receiving from March also shows a lot of the oranges and reds, which shows that things have not yet started to improve. We are still in April, so we're not yet collecting the data, aggregate data for April, but in May we will be able to give you an update as it refers to the March-April period. But based on the level of rainfall that we experienced during March, the drought conditions have been exacerbated, and they are becoming more severe for the parishes that were already seeing a deficit, and then there is an expansion to more parishes. That is what we are expecting to see when we move into the next month. So what we're looking at now is the projection, where we are seeing still that we will have some amount of drying at the beginning of the period, but the April, May, June period, as we move into May and into June, we do expect an increase in rainfall. And there on this chart, we see that the western end of the island is likely to remain brown for a little bit longer than the rest of the country because of the climate patterns that are expected to be developing. We do expect that we will see the change occurring in the central and eastern parishes a bit before we start to see it in the west. Hence, Negril is at risk for continued dryness, and you could experience a deepening of the drought conditions for the parishes of Hanover and Westmoreland, which are the ones being under consideration today. So that's basically the report that I have for you today. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. Our second presentation would be from Mr. Peter Clark, Managing Director for the Water Resources Authority. Please make him welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. Good morning, everyone. With regards to the Water Resources Authority, good afternoon, actually. With regards to the Water Resources Authority and the issues, as you may recall, when it comes to situations of drought, it becomes our challenge, as usual, is to continue to collect data. So notwithstanding the fact that it's not raining heavily or whatever, we are used to collecting high flows and so on, the low flows are also very important because they will help us in our future plans and everything like that. What we've done is we've divided Jamaica into 10 hydrologic basins, and Negril is on the western end of the island. So actually, Negril, being a coastal community, straddles two of our hydrologic basins, which would be the Great River and the Cabarita River basins. Normally, there is an issue with trans-basin transfer of water. usually have conflicts. However, with Negril being placed exactly how it is, straddling both basins, it becomes not so much of a challenge to introduce water from either side into Negril. It's quite acceptable within Negril, and it's quite acceptable from the sources that it's coming from. You may notice those red dots in terms of wells and so on. You'll see that essentially, with Negril being right there on the coast, you're not seeing many wells or anything in that area. So the groundwater potential there is not so very high. As a matter of fact, in the areas within the space where wells have been drilled, because of the closeness to the coastline and everything, you will get a water that's highly brackish. And as a result, then treating that and bringing that to a potable standard becomes an expensive challenge. And so you have to invest into reverse osmosis and so on. As we all know, Negril is served largely by the logwood treatment plant, and right now that is down to just about 40, it's less than 50%. So the output has dropped off significantly. We are monitoring rivers elsewhere also in the region. We are monitoring the Great River, which is a potential source to be used, and also we're monitoring the Roaring River. With regards to the Great River, and looking at what my colleague Evan Thompson just spoke about a while ago with regards to the drought and the dry period this year compared to last year and everything, all we can see is that for January 2024, the Great River was putting out 30.9 million gallons per day in January of 2024. All right, in January of 2023, it was 23.2 million gallons, and in 2022, 56.8. So even though last year, as Evan had said, was a very significant drought, this year is already presenting challenges. And for February, you can see that February, it dropped from, in 1 month, it dropped from 30.9 million gallons per day to 15.7. That's a half. That's a half of your amount of water that became available in February. All right, it hasn't rained. Well, Evan is waiting to collect the numbers for March, but I've spent a little bit of time down in the area, and I haven't seen that much rain on that side then in March. So, I don't know how significant that change is going to be, but we see that is happening. And also on the Roaring River side, again, Roaring River has fallen from 39.7 million gallons in January of this year to 24.3 million gallons per day in February of this year. So that obviously our rivers are responding to the rainfall or the lack thereof, and as the dry conditions continue, we can also anticipate that these would also become affected. It ties into all this data that we collect ties into what we put in our master plan, and the master plan is a planning tool that we all use. Met Service uses it, NEPA uses it, the developers use it, the National Water Commission certainly uses it. So it is our task to continue to collect data becomes continues to be important. We recognize that there will be the need for trucking, and this is something that at this time we will have to we certainly do support, because the fact is that the water has to be transported. However, it can be transported where it is needed. Ministers alluded to the matter of the maintenance of high levels of sanitation and potability with all of this water, and so we do know that that attention is being made and being paid in that regard. And so, that is something that we, of course, support. We also support the rainwater harvesting. There's already a program within Rural Water Supply Limited for rainwater harvesting in schools and in some communities. This is something that, of course, they are not getting the rain there, but what it means is that when you do get it, you have to be in the position to collect, to store, and then to use in a safe manner. The other thing is the matter of the critical watersheds. And Negril, believe it or not, does fall in a critical watershed because it falls within the whole of that wetlands. There's an existing wetlands area. And the mangrove preservation is something that will help us. So we're now looking at we're not seeing this is not what we can do today or tomorrow. But this is something that we have to do so that we maintain our resilience going forward in the future. All right, so we have to maintain the environmental flow in our wetlands. And there is the Alwika project, which Minister and the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation have been championing. And that project to re-wet the wetlands is pardon me, is ongoing. In terms of current developments, we have to recognize also that sometimes our solution, clearly the solution for Negril is not in Negril, because the water sources just are not right there. What it means is that we have to depend and promote a ripple effect. So what it means is that for Negril to get water, and if Logwood is down, then water has to come from somewhere. We see what we can bring from Roaring River, for instance, and we see what we can bring from Great River. But then to bring from Great River into Negril means that we'll have to deprive Montego Bay a little bit, which means that we'll have to go back to Martha Brae to support Montego Bay some more, which means we'll have to go to the other Roaring River to support the Martha Brae some more, and go to the White River to support that some more, and eventually even going as far to look to the point where the Jordan Run wells that we're now examining in St. Mary, they become integral in the overall solution of things, or in the overall response to these things. And so that is a part of what we have to look at. The fact is, when we do have it, we have to reclaim, we have to reuse, we have to restrict, we have to reduce, we have to reserve, and when necessary, we have to redirect. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Clark. Quite insightful presentation, and especially with today being World Earth Day, I think the discussions are far and wide, as we're seeing, and the context is not even just Jamaica anymore. It's really having us take a look at the global phenomenon that we are treating with. I also want to acknowledge the CEO and the town planner for the National Environment and Planning Agency. Mr. Francis is here sharing in the discussions, and we're pleased to have you, sir, Mr. Leonard Francis. Blessings, sir. Thank you for having us. We move on. Our third presentation, obviously, with all the discussions about the sources, persons want to know how they get water into their homes. And so the man of the moment is Mr. Kevin Carr. He is acting president of the National Water Commission. And in case you haven't quite figured it out yet, he's my boss, not just from today, but from yesterday. So I'll treat him with every regard I can. Please make him welcome.
Thank you, Delana. Good afternoon to our viewers, our customers, employees, PS, CTD, Minister, Evan, Peter, my new NEPA colleague who will be a key partner for the NWC going forward. We have an upcoming engagement to see how we chant our new relationship. So we at the NWC, we have listened to the residents of Hanover and Westmoreland that are supplied from the Logwood Water Treatment Plant, and we are here today to provide our updates on our actions that we have taken since January to present. We will also update you on our medium-term and our long-term plans to improve water supply in that area, along with the northwestern section of Jamaica, and the activities that we will continue to pursue following my two colleagues' presentation earlier would have set the pitch to why is it that NWC need to carry out these activities and the support that we will need from you, our customers, and the citizens of Hanover and Westmoreland. So our presentation to you today will be in 4 segments. First, we look at weather ramification in the area. We will look at the potable supply zone in the area. We look at the implications to the NWC and the next steps for you, our customers and citizens. First, in addition to what the Met Office would have shared earlier, it shows that for the next 2 months, the eastern parishes will receive above normal rainfall, and it means that for those who are seeing the map on the screen. The yellow-brownish area suggests that Hanover and Westmoreland will continue to have minimum to below normal rainfall, and we will share in subsequent slide the activities that we're going to carry out to mitigate the disruption in service. So I'll briefly share how the water is distributed along the North Coast. So this map demonstrates water coming from Martha Brae from the east to a central point in Montego Bay, which meets water coming from Great River. Also, Great River produce and distribute water westward towards Lucy, Lagwood Water Treatment Plant, which is on my far west, supplies all the way northeast to Lucy and northwest to Negril. So I'll share some gap analysis of the current situation. In periods of good, where the rain falls, Lagwood produce 6 to 6.5 million gallons per day. During that period, there's no deficit. Currently, in this dry period, we're down by 45%, and which means there's a current deficit of 4 million gallons per day. We will share also how we intend to cover that deficit. Our plans for 2030 shows that with the increased demand for housing developments that are upcoming, there will be a deficit of 12 million. And I will share the activities that will minimize that deficit by 2030. This photo here, it shows the Fish River. So the current status, it is dry. No water is coming from the Fish River at this moment. So currently, the Orange River Blue Hole, which is now the main source of water for the water treatment plant at Lagwood, is now at 45%. This 45% means that we cannot operate the plant 24 hours per day. So water is periodically produced, and the facility is shut down to build storage at the Blue Hole. Peter earlier shared some potential storage on the North Coast that can augment this area. So from the south, he shared we have Venture River, Run River, and Black River. And on the northeast, there's Great River, Martha Brae, and Roy Buena, which will fall part of our long-term strategic plan to meet the northwestern and northeastern supply scheme of Jamaica. So the actions that the NWC has taken since January. We have communicated our challenges to you, the citizens. We have established stakeholder groups so we can get the feedback real time. We have implemented nightly adjustments to minimize fall-off rate at the Blue Hole. We have increased the number of trucks from other regions by 4. And we have scheduled intermittent pipe water supply. So I will share shortly the areas that have benefited from the new regulated schedule that we have shared. So I'm going to quickly summarize from Sunday to Sunday. So on Sunday, 7 a.m. to 3 p.m., Norman Boulevard, Whitehall, Orange Hill, Mount Airy, Brighton. 4 p.m. to 2, West End and Westland Mountain. On Monday, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., Norman Boulevard, Sheffield, all roads leading off. It's 9 a.m. to 7 p.m., Whitehall, Orange Hill, Mount Airy, and Brighton. Tuesday, 9 a.m. to 12 p.m., Whitehall, Phase 1, 2, and 3, Red Ground. 9 a.m. to 7 p.m., Norman Boulevard, Sheffield, and all roads leading off that you can visit. You can visit our website to get the detailed schedule, and we will continue to post it in the different groups that we have in both parishes. So our short-term measures, we'll conduct a rapid appraisal of the network, we'll do active leak detection, we'll repair the leaks that we have found, We intend to regularize those customers who are not currently on board with us to partner with us so we can promote conservation of the water that is unauthorized used. We will commence the procurement of 8 new water trucks. We will continue to intensify our trucking in that space. On the Great River system, we will commence the decalcification, which is an activity known as pigging, where we put an equipment in the pipe and we pump it through the pipe to something like, is a simple term, is washing sediments from the pipe. And this activity will bring an additional 1 million gallons per day, which we will dedicate solely for Hanover. And this water will reach as far as Green Island, so we will minimize the need for logwood to go to that space, which means more water will be available to pump to the communities in Whitehall, Red Ground, and environs, which is the water transfer that we mentioned for Great River to Green Island. We have also, since January, procured a new standby generator. Those of you who are living in the area who are familiar with frequent power outage in the area, and this standby generator is to minimize the interruption when there is a single phase or low voltage problem. We have commenced installation and we will push to complete by this weekend. We plan to also explore any potential while RRA previously shared that the area is not known for wells, we are still going to explore the potential. There are some long-term, there are some medium-term activities which Minister will speak to further. We will commence the preparatory works for these major transmission lines in this financial period. So the medium-term activities, our plan is to upgrade the transmission lines from Marthabury all the way to Negril. We will expand capacity at Great River and Marthabury to meet the deficit in dry period and the upcoming demands. We will also, through our research unit, explore the potential of desalination in that space. Our long-term measures to address the deficit in Negril, we spoke about it decades ago, which is the construct a new water treatment plant in Roan River, Westmoreland. Financial means would have prevented this from happening. We would have commenced some activities which was at the time to extend the transmission line from Great River to Lucy. We are already advanced in our procurement activity to conduct a island-wide non-revenue water reduction project. This means we will address the efficiencies of the NWC to minimize leaks. So in period of drought, we have additional capacity to meet your needs. So this summarizes the capital needs to address the short, medium, and long-term goals in this space. As you can see, it's a lot of money. And while the NWC would have presented 2 successive financial periods that we have made a profit, that profit is not enough to address this long-term activity in this space. And we are pursuing public-private partnership financial means to achieve these projects. And it is not an activity that will take 1 year or 2 years. That's why it's scheduled in the short, medium, and long term. And the next steps for you, our customers, consumers, and citizens, we will continue to have regular communication with you. We ask you to continue to be patient with our teams as we try to distribute the little water that we have. We encourage you to store water and conserve, and continue to report leaks whenever you see them to the NWC. And finally, there's a famous Jamaican saying that water more than flour, and it means that time is hard. While we're in the drought period, the NWC is never short of ideas to address the challenges, and we ask that you continue to have hope in the NWC that we will find a way to provide the help that you need. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kerr. I just want to highlight a couple of things he said in terms of the short-term measures. I know he already highlighted that close to 500,000 gallons of water has already been trucked. Just want to reiterate that that activity will continue. Am I right, Mr. Carr? So trucking will continue as part of the short-term measures, as well as the various other methods to deliver water to customers within the two parishes adjoining to Negril, so to speak. He spoke also about the identifying of sources, and I think, Mr. Clark, the community is already quite active in helping us to look. So a comment on PBCJ, person shared that there are rivers, particularly in one place called Pipe Hole in Georgia. I think that's heading to Jericho area. And copper in Mount Peace are two possible sources that you can take a look at. All right. So now at this time, we will invite Minister Samuda to come and to make his next statements. Please make him welcome.
Thank you, Delano, and thank you, colleagues, and thank you to all the members of the media who have joined us either in person or online. And thank you to the technical teams from the full water sector, ably managed by the team here at MEGJC. We understand the frustrations. We understand that what the business sector in Western Jamaica, what citizens, what those who run community centers and places of worship would like to hear is how we will increase their water supply now. What we have to acknowledge is the climatic realities which were shared by Mr. Thompson. Their impact, or rather the impact of these climatic realities as shared by Mr. Clark from the WRA, and of course the utility realities shared by Mr. Carr. We're not going to sit back and allow the impact of these climatic realities to put our citizens under undue stress. I did reiterate earlier in my opening that we had already allocated significant sums for trucking. I would like to state that there are two other steps that the Prime Minister has directed as at this morning. The first, in a meeting with myself and Minister Favour Williams, he asked that in a partnership with ourselves and the Ministry of Education, that an immediate assessment led by Rural Water is to be done for all public schools in Hanover and Westmoreland with a move to increase water storage over the next 4 to 6 weeks. As you would have seen, the projections for increased rainfall do not paint the picture we would like. As such, we will be intervening to ensure that all of our schools have adequate storage. I've also had discussions with Mr. Kevin Carr about increasing the monitoring and rate of trucking to our educational institutions. We don't intend to allow for any learning loss with any of our schools. Now, our regional manager has done a good job in communicating with the regional directors of the Ministry of Education and indeed all of our schools. We will be moving to set up a troubleshooting network by way of a WhatsApp group and an email line dedicated to schools to ensure that they are not disrupted. Schools are paramount, and we do not intend to cause any learning loss. So that's step one. Step two, there is concern within the hotel sector as you lead up to Memorial Weekend in May. That is a secondary peak period for hotel stays, which you do go through the lull post the winter season. I want to assure the hotel sector that I would have met with Mr. Carr earlier this morning, and there is a safety net that will be put in place to ensure that hotels from Western St. James all the way into Western Westmoreland at the tip of the West End will be protected and their business will not be disrupted. The third issue The issues that I hear from the average consumer, the average citizen there, the first one, 2.5 months ago, would have been a rate of communication, that they weren't a part of a stakeholder group, so they didn't necessarily know what was happening. Not all are tech savvy and have their email addresses or getting the text messages, so not everyone was fully connected. The Water Commission, and indeed the ministry, has made an effort, has redoubled its effort rather, to communicate with citizens. I think you'd see the notices published in the Gleaner and the Observer on a regular basis. You'd see our social media communicating. And I know that our regional management team is in contact with virtually all of the CDC groups in parish. That's not sufficient. Later this week, I will visit myself and we will meet with several community leaders to look at how we communicate so that persons are able to plan at the community level. So that's an issue that we believe is on path to be resolved. The other chronic issue that we've heard was the concerns in disruptions brought about by energy breaks, either because of JPS servicing a network where there wasn't necessarily integration in planning on the JPS perspective with NWC. So NWC may have a scheduled supply, but JPS has scheduled works to take place on their power supply at the time where we need to pump water. I've met with Minister Vaz, and we will be convening a discussion between the NWC and JPS to ensure that works where possible, not always possible, where maintenance works in these areas that are disproportionately affected by water supply, that we coordinate. We've gone a step further. You'd have heard the procurement update from Acting President Carr on the generator that is going to the Logwood facility. We're also taking a look at our critical pumping facilities in the West to make sure that they are taken care of with further budget allocations where needed for generators. But I want to also assure residents, we're monitoring this issue of trucking very, very carefully, very closely rather. Allegations of spurious interventions. We've asked the police to take a look at those allegations. If anyone is tampering with the Water Commission network, we're asking you to report it to the police or to report it to the Office of the President or to myself. We have no evidence of it, but the accusations continue, and we want to assure citizens that if they report it, we will investigate and we will punish anyone who is caught in that regard. I also want to assure residents that we are clear that trucking is not the only or the best option, but it is the option we have for emergency response right now. It is why we are also ensuring that additional trucking will be made available to the citizens going into the end of May, where an assessment will be done. If hopefully Evan and team have done the rain dance and we've gotten the rain that we're praying for May, we can step back. If not, we will again make additional allocations. We're clear that this is having a debilitating impact, and we're also working around the clock to ensure that persons get the emergency response. Now, what always happens when you say, every year we're having this discussion, well, the capital projects just presented by Acting President Carr are how we ensure that in a few years we don't have this discussion every year you have a drought. There is a $209 million capital plan for the North Coast. That will take several years. But I want to assure residents that two elements of that plan are already down the wicket in particular phases in the project development phase. The first is the replacement of the pipelines from Martha Brae into St. James, and Peter would have explained the interlinkage with all the rivers in terms of ensuring that where sources are, you connect where people are, as well as the line pretty much from Rossies into Negril. We expect this pipeline replacement work to start this calendar year. We will invest some $70 million in these pipelines to replace these. Now that will deal with two issues that we currently have. One, the fact that these pipelines leak profusely. They've all aged out. As the Prime Minister would say, they've passed their useful life. The other issue that it will resolve is the fact that the line from Rossies into Negril now is simply too small for the development and the population growth that you've seen in this area. It is currently 9 inches. We expect to increase it to 24 inches, significantly improving water supply in the area. Mr. Carr would have also spoken about the fact that we're going through the varying procurement stages of a PPP for the Great River Treatment Plant. This is absolutely critical to the future of Western Jamaica. We have a long way to go. We have a lot of work to undertake, but I want to assure the public that we're looking at this holistically with short, medium, and long-term solutions. We will also ensure that we continue to maintain communication lines so that we're able to deal with short-term issues that cause operational inefficiencies. I thank you.
Thank you, Minister, for your kind words and updates, sir. Now we make time for the questions, both from the media in the room and also from various social media and streaming platforms. So, Danny is on the floor.
So you can just raise your hand and then you identify yourselves and then ask your question.
We'll take two from the room and then we go to social media and then come back. All right?
Afternoon, Mahiri Stewart from Nationwide News here. Stand. Afternoon, Mahiri Stewart from Nationwide News. My question to Minister Samuda, or anyone that could pretty much answer it. I was asking a question about desperation in this period. We understand there was an incident in which a tank was stolen from, I believe it was Negril Primary. I want to know if, similar to what we were speaking about earlier with the water tampering where trucking is concerned, is there also a heightened concern about more instances of tank stealing as we go through this drought period?
Stealing is not an act of desperation. The act to remove the water tank from that school in Negril was an act of sheer vulgar criminality. And we should commend the members of the law enforcement agencies who are investigating this, because we expect them to have a breakthrough, hopefully, or rather we hope they'll have a breakthrough soon. But I also want to commend the members of varying groups in society who would have stepped up to provide the tanks, even though the government had committed so to do before we could blink. Several members of the community replaced those tanks. Let's not confuse this. There is disruption because of climatic factors to water supply in Western Jamaica. There is no reason for the theft of anyone's tank, either from a commercial facility, a government facility, or households. It is a depraved act. It's the first time I've seen such an act. We don't expect, and we certainly hope there'll be no recurrence. As it relates to trucking, the government manages its water sector through what's called the Integrated Water Resource Management Council. That council has a subcommittee, which is a drought management committee. That drought management committee benefits from support from NEPA, from the Ministry of Health, and of course from the JDF and the JCF. So we monitor stressors on communities from time to time, and if there is a reason, we're not at that point, but if there is a reason where there could be community disorder, the JCF and JDF provide support for the NWC workers to carry out their mandate.
All right, so we have a question here from the GIS page, I believe, on YouTube, from Rob Graves. Why is the Cabarita River not being used as a source?
We'll invite Mr. Peter Clark to give a response.
Okay, well, the fact is that just about any river is a source that can be exploited. The particular situation with the Cabarita River is that it is high in the nutrients that can be deleterious to us, and so it is very expensive to keep it clean. But the technology is there. It will take some amount of capital outlay if it is to be looked at The fact is that at the end of the day, the water producing companies like the National Water Commission spend a lot of money in terms of making the water potable. And those chemicals and everything is a big expense for them. If they can go to another source like Roaring River, for instance, and from that source also produce the water of a high quality and then transport it, it is something that is an option that they would also be looking at. But the fact is that, yes, any source, any water source, essentially, even the seawater, we all know that is a source that can be exploited. If not just, it takes more than a will. It also takes, financial commitment and the outlays and all of that. So at the end of the day, an entity like the National Water Commission will weigh the pros and cons between spending the money to deliver a reliable, potable source, or should they put the money into another source where, they will have other challenges, and that is essentially. I don't know if the Water Commission have any particular comments on that, but from the water resources point of view, that's what we would have to say.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Clark. I see the NWC team sharing that they share that point of view in terms of water availability more readily from the Roaring River, and also in terms of the quality and work that it would take to treat and extend network to get it to the places that are of concern. I do have one comment from the Facebook page, and it says just asking the NWC to respond. It says the scheduled water supply from the NWC is sometimes intermittent and doesn't always match the time frames. So if you can provide some feedback as to why that is so, because sometimes there is no water during the scheduled times.
Yes, we thank you for your feedback, and we will reach out to you to get further details so we can adjust the schedule to meet your needs.
Okay, thanks. The person posting on Facebook is just being encouraged to provide a further contact so a social media team can follow up with you and do a more direct investigation. Are there any other questions from the floor? Okay. There is one other update I want to share, if you'll permit me. There is a remark, concern, or a query regarding the Rosemount water supply fed by the Great River system. Some time ago, we did tour the area, and a promised pump was made. Promise for a pump was made. We're happy to provide an update that the pump is currently being installed and should be operational within a few days, and that will be to meet the needs for Rosemount and the additional or adjoining areas that are fed from the Great River system. All right. I'm not seeing any further questions from the room. Danny, none from social media. That means our presentations collectively have been quite comprehensive. Perhaps it's also a gesture of partnership between the utility and stakeholders here and the communities that we serve. And so I want to thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for your time. Thank you for participating in whatever fashion you did. Thanks also to the media, to the representatives from each of the agencies, and particularly Minister and his team as well. The work continues to deliver water supply. The assurances you have are here on record, and we're looking forward to providing you with reliable and also an improving service. Thank you again, and have a great afternoon. We will take some interviews for those who wish to do so off air.
In the heart of the Caribbean, Where the sun kisses the shores lies a compelling tale of Jamaica's relentless pursuit of life-sustaining water. Water, the essence of life, a critical substance for human existence on Earth. It's a lifeline that weaves through the health, well-being, and prosperity of our citizens. But a significant challenge has historically impacted the lives of our people: limited access to potable water. What factors contribute to the persistence of this issue, and what strides has Jamaica made in its quest to overcome this challenge? Join us in this thrilling voyage as we explore the ripples of change that aim to quench the thirst of a nation. Welcome to Ripple, Jamaica's journey to enhancing access to potable water. Our exploration begins by unraveling the challenges that have shaped Jamaica's relationship with potable water.
The resources of Jamaica at this time are adequate for our resources. The challenge is where the distribution comes in, where the majority of water resources available are on the north coast, while the majority of population and people who are in demand for the water is on the south coast. So the distribution of that water is one of the issues that we face, and also keeping in mind that the impacts of climate change will impact the water resources with less rainfall and higher temperatures, which will lead to lower water availability in the long term. If you're looking for potable water, then you'd want water that is of good quality initially. So if water is contaminated by, for example, caustic, then that water would not be available for domestic water usage without significant treatment. Ditto for nitrate contamination, etc. So when water is contaminated and the quality declines, then that would require a much greater investment to purify the water to the given quality, which many times Jamaica may not have the technology or the finances to do. So any decline of water quality will lead to a decline of that water availability for potable usage and other usages.
These factors have evidently played a major role in depriving many of our citizens access to safe and convenient water. Many communities are forced to seek alternative sources that may have limitations in both quality and quantity. Picture this: families depending on untreated water, a stark contrast to what should be a basic human right. But amidst these challenges emerges hope. The Jamaican government, steadfast in resolving this issue, has embarked on a transformative journey. Major steps have been taken to expand and improve the potable water supply network throughout the island.
We have been turning on the pipelines, I've said, in communities all across Jamaica, and there is no more fulfilling feeling than seeing the faces of citizens when these projects are complete. I have directed the NWC to pursue 45 small projects to install new systems or incorporate existing small local systems to extend coverage to communities which are presently inadequately served. It is expected that the associated expenditure of $200 million will have an impact on the lives and well-being of close to 40,000 persons.
The government of Jamaica, through agencies like the National Water Commission, is indeed making waves in increasing access to potable water.
So our mandate is to provide easy access to as many Jamaicans as possible to potable water as well as wastewater services. By that, it simply means we have to move our current coverage from just about 70% in terms of potable water supply to 85% by 2030, which is in keeping with Vision 2030, which is what the government sets out. In terms of how that is operationalized, we conduct both large-scale projects as well as what we call small parish projects. So within each parish, there is an allocation of approximately $20 million that the parish managers use to undertake projects that will improve the lives of citizens, extending water supply, whether for 1 or 2 kilometers, sometimes a little more, installing pumping systems, rehabilitating sources, and so on. Large-scale projects border in the range annually of between $4 to $6 billion. And these now, for instance, by the Spanish Town Road project, which recently, just about a year ago, was completed. 6 miles of pipeline from what is called 6 miles to just about the borders of North Street in Kingston. Other projects over the last few years would mean, for instance, the extension of the NWC transmission main from Luana in St. Elizabeth out to Middle Quarters. This was over 4 kilometers of pipeline. The project itself was completed in July of 2022, and it was at a cost of approximately 113 million. What this does, it has now extended or allowed us to better supply areas such as New Holland, Craigie, Lancewood, Rockland, and a number of other communities that are just now being extended as well. This is reflected in our overall approach right across the island. The South Coast Highway, which is being constructed, involves the installation of new water supply mains all the way from East Kingston, Bull Bay area, through St. Thomas into Port Antonio.
It is evident that the ripples of change are continuously being extended to more communities as we work hand in hand to resolve this issue. But it doesn't stop there. Major progress has been made to increase access to potable water in our schools. One such school is Merlin Otti High, where waves of joy and excitement were felt at the commissioning ceremony on January 31, 2024.
The team at the National Water Commission and Rural Water, and indeed the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation, led by the Most Honorable Prime Minister, has set out to achieve universal access to potable water and sanitation by 2030. And we are determined that we will achieve that. Potable water is the basic. It is why when the Prime Minister heard of the issues here at the storied high school of Merlin Otti High, a legend in Jamaica, rightfully honored with the naming of this high school, he insisted that this work be done. In the community of Pondside, the National Water Commission has invested some $600 million. That is the cost of bringing you potable water.
I think there is no word in the dictionary at this point that can express how I feel. Related or excitement, they sound too minor. It has been a challenge for us and for the students, because I cannot even whisper it because of social media to say we have been using the tanks, we have been purchasing water, and there are times when we are expecting the water to be delivered and they have challenges getting the water here. And I'm so excited, the students are excited, the teachers are excited. It has been over 3 decades, right? So it took time, it took some time, but it is the right time.
So for me to know that we're getting back water over 30 years now, I'm so happy because it has been so difficult for us to get water in the bathroom, especially at the fountains to get water to drink. And I'm so happy for knowing that Merlin Otti is getting back water.
I feel really excited. I am just overjoyed to know that we finally have running water in our bathrooms and stuff like that, because normally, you know, we have to lift the bucket to like flush the toilets and stuff like that. Sometimes the water, we see the water truck coming in and stuff like that. So I feel really good and really happy that we're getting the water, you know, after 30 years, well, 30 and over years, we're getting water now. So I really feel happy.
Even though, yes, they provide water for us, but that's, you know, because sometimes an accident can happen in the bathroom when the water is on the ground and we don't know, right? And sometimes when water gone and none is at the canteen, we were worried because, you know, they need water to help them in the canteen. So I'm really happy and delighted that water is here.
As we navigate the journey of development, Jamaica's commitment to securing a future enriched by the life-giving flow of water is not just a testament to our resilience, but a source of collective pride. The ripples of change steered by the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation and its dedicated agencies echoing the transformed lives and flourishing communities across our island. Our achievements are not just bricks and pipelines, but a promise kept, a promise to safeguard the health, prosperity, and joy of our citizens. As the future unfolds, consider the pivotal role of each citizen. Just as water sustains us, we too must sustain and protect our water sources. By conserving water and responsibly managing waste, we contribute to sustainability, a shared commitment to safeguarding this vital resource. Amidst the pride in our achievements, Jamaica's relentless pursuit for enhanced access to potable water continues. The ripple extends its reach, touching more lives, more communities, and heralding a future where no one is left behind.